Welcome back. How did you make out? Did you get some food? Some good nourishment? Hold on, let me photobomb. Thank you. So welcome back, welcome back. You may notice that there is a gift on your seats. Please, yeah, don't open it. It's like the holidays. You can't open it until you're told to open it, and that's going to happen at the end of the executive panel. So let me check in. How many of you have met at least 2 other people that you're going to stay connected with? Let me see a show of hands. At least 2 other people you're going to stay connected with. Bonus, bonus. How are we doing on key insights? At least 1 key insight for each speaker. Give me a round of applause if you got at least 1 key insight. Yeah. We had that nasty lunch conversation around who was your favorite speaker, which is always a challenge because now we make you choose sides, but amazing morning, and just wait for the afternoon. This next portion is our executive panel, and we're really thrilled to bring this to you because, again, this is about how do you take this back to work. And it's great to hear from thought leaders, and they're amazing individuals and have written incredible books. But sometimes it's challenging to take those great leaders' ideas and really bring them to the world of work for you. And what we find with the executive panel is that these are people that are doing or have done exactly what you are wanting to do and are where you want to get to. And so by you having this opportunity to participate with us in the executive panel, we really want you to be able to take it back to work. So we're going to get together. You can see our panelists will be up here very shortly. But we're going to have a conversation here on stage for about 25 to 30 minutes. And then we invite you to be ready. I'm going to come down into the audience and ask you some questions. Or have you ask the questions. I'm not going to ask the questions. You're going to ask the panel the questions if you'd like to. So if you would, join me in welcoming Chris Wolff, head of EOM and IoT partnerships from Dell Technologies. We have Kate Ross LeBlanc, who is the CEO and co-founder of Saje. And we also have Denise Mann, who is the head and SVP of Digital Transformation at ATB Financial right here. So join me and welcome them all to the stage. Denise, if you will. Kate, come on down. And Chris, join us here. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy days and your busy calendars. And maybe Denise, if you will, for us, tell us a little bit about what brought you to the stage and if you have any special guests with you here today aside from your ATB family.
Yes, absolutely. Well, first off, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's particularly delightful to get to share the stage with such accomplished, amazing women, and all of you here today. So, as mentioned, my name is Denise Mann, and I am a born and raised Calgarian. Woo-hoo! Yeah, I say it loud and proud because I'm incredibly passionate about our community, and I work for ATB Financial. For those of you who are not familiar with it, yeah, we've got a few allies out there from ATB, and for those of you who are not familiar with ATB Financial, our sole purpose is to serve Albertans. And we serve Albertans from those who are underbanked or what other banks would consider unbankable, all the way through to the large corporations that are based out of Alberta. And so it gives me great pride to work for such an amazing company, and I get to work with amazing technologies all day, every day, to bring financial services to them. In addition to that, I do have a couple special guests here. Yeah. My 10-year-old daughter is here, and so you cannot start leadership training early enough, so.
And
my husband, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Did he have anything? Never mind, I'm not going to ask that question. Kate, welcome. What brought you with us here today?
I am so excited to be here in Calgary. It was the home of our first store outside of British Columbia. Thank you, Calgary, for the incredible welcome that you gave us when we ventured over the Rockies. And I started Saje with my husband over 25 years ago. As a marriage, I guess, of our 2 passions, mine being creating service and community and connection with people, having grown up in small-town Ontario in my mom's fabric store. And when I met my husband, he had paid his way through university racing motorcycles and had some soft tissue damage that Western medicine just was not able to help him get ahead with. And so he had a chemistry background, and we started to research natural alternatives, moved to the West Coast, and began our business there, and really worked for many, many years, pioneering our formulations and as our first proof of concept, because people said, oh, people in Vancouver like this, but nobody else across Canada will get this. Well, Calgary, you proved them all wrong, and I thank you, and I'm so excited to be here with you today.
Thank you, Kate. And Chris.
Please call me Wolfie. We're friends now.
There we go. We are friends now. So, Wolfie, what brought you to the stage with us here today?
Well, I am tickled to be here representing Dell Technologies. Where are my Dell girls in the house? Woo! I represent the land of acronyms, literally. So I work for an organization in Dell, which is called the OEM Division, which stands for Original Equipment Manufacturers. We make bespoke compute that goes inside of other people's complex machines. So I promise you, when you leave here and see a screen inside of something, there's a good chance that our guts are on the inside, and we're very happy to be there. We have been making devices and complex things smart for 20 years, and so it flowed naturally that we would work on the Internet of Things. Show of hands, how many of you have a tremendous number of more smart devices in your house after this past holiday season than you did last holidays? People want at work what they can have at home, and we're able to tap into all of these digital capabilities to make people so much more productive, more safe, happier at work, and we're thrilled to do that. So that's our Internet of Things, or IoT division.
All right, thank you so much. So glad that you are here, and if we can get into our conversation, I'd just be thrilled. So based on your experience, Denise, maybe we can start with you. What are some strategies that can help women achieve a more prominent role in their organizations?
Okay, yeah, so I think there's actually a lot of strategies and tools that we've heard today. Things around confidence, opting in, our networks. There's lots of powerful things, but I want to actually flip the narrative a little bit here. I think if we continue to push the onus back on women and we continue to ask those individual things that we need to be doing, it perpetuates the perception that something is wrong with us. And the reality is that organizational structures have been for decades designed to be at a disadvantage for women to move up into senior leadership positions. And so I think the question really needs to be thought about from the perspective of what do organizations need to do to continue to help women get more prominent positions in their organization. And so when I had the opportunity of leading infrastructure operations, I drilled into everybody along with myself that what gets measured gets done. And I think there's lots of ways we can do it. I'm not so fussed about the how, but I think it's important that organizations put it on their scorecard. Because it's amazing how if you put a performance metric, if you put incentive against an initiative, smart people rally around it and they find a way to make it true. And so I think that's one of the things that's really important that organizations start to think about.
Beautiful. Wolfie, what about in your world?
The same. Dell, I'm the lucky beneficiary of Dell shamelessly trying to poach senior women into our business because we can't grow them fast enough. And they made it financially lucrative. They gave me a job that I would love to do and plenty of sponsorship. And so that's been fantastic. I think smart companies who have to compete are finding ways to bring that diversity in.
So hold on a second then. What I heard, what I understood was that the organization is growing its women so quickly that they needed to bring outside talent in?
Not really. Our tech, as you saw earlier today, tech is losing women at a half-life that's worse than the rhinos.
Yeah.
We need to find women, in order to have the talent and compete, we are going to shamelessly poach your talent. So if you have talented women in your tech company, watch out because we're coming for them.
Fair enough, Kate.
Well, I'm going to turn this a little bit to, I guess, the individual and what we can do as individual women. I believe this applies to men and women, but it's around developing our emotional quotient, our emotional IQ. We know that to come into senior level roles, a level of IQ and technical skills is absolutely required. But what sets apart, regardless of personality, regardless of background, what sets world-class leaders apart is how emotionally mature they are. So this comes down to me to being self-aware, and it's something we can all do every day, is to work on our self-awareness. We can work on this in our personal relationships, in our relationships at work. The second thing around building your emotional IQ is around being self-motivated, having your motivation come from within, not around external motivations. And the third thing is around the ability to take responsibility. You know, if you break that word down, the responsibility is the ability to respond. And you will notice that who will rise to leadership, no matter what happens, no matter if you weren't even in the room, you weren't in the building when it happened, if you step up and take responsibility, guess what? You'll get more responsibility. And the last one that I like to cultivate is what I call my definition of maturity, which is the time that you put between the stimulus and the response. So when something happens, something doesn't go your way, that ability to be able to hold that inside yourself, be thoughtful in how you're going to respond to that, even if that's an hour later or a day later. If you work on your emotional IQ, you will definitely set yourself apart and propel yourself towards leadership.
Beautiful. You're setting up Dr. Tasha Eurich from her book Insights perfectly for that. So thank you. Thank you, Kate. Denise, I'm going to come to you now, and I want to talk a little bit about the difference between sponsorship and mentorship. And so in your opinion, what are the key differences between sponsorship and mentorship? Are both really needed in the corporate world? And how do you see both sponsorship and mentorship working together?
Okay, good
There's a lot
question.
there.
Okay, so I'm going to start with yes. You need both mentorship and sponsorship. And so I should say I've grown up mostly in large corporations, so it's really the lens of the corporate ladder that I'm thinking about mentorship and sponsorship. And I can tell you, before joining ATB, I was the Chief Technology Officer at Enbridge, and I wouldn't have, it would be much harder for me to have gotten into that chair had I not had great sponsors and great mentors. So I'm going to go back to the first part of your question, Bill. What is mentorship versus sponsorship? So in my opinion, actually I've heard it quoted really nicely in that mentorship is when somebody talks to you, and sponsorship is when somebody talks about you in a good way. And so how I've experienced mentorship is oftentimes it's somebody in your life that provides guidance, they provide feedback, sometimes it's coaching, advice, and oftentimes they've traveled a journey that perhaps you want to travel yourself. So they have networks and accelerators, and they have really great perspectives on how you can navigate some of those big rocks. But when it comes to sponsorship, sponsorship is a different animal. Sponsorship is when somebody actively advocates for your career advancement. If this is something you want, you absolutely should go out and find a sponsor. They use their influence, their authority, their network, and they advocate for you for things like your pay increase, your job promotion, getting a great visible assignment. Because all of those decisions actually happen in a closed room where you probably are not at that table. And you want somebody talking about you in a really positive way to help advocate for you to get those things. And so they serve different outcomes. For me, when I was at Enbridge, I had great sponsors when the role of the CTO came up. That's probably a big part of what got me the job. But what was amazing is that after I got the job, to ensure it wasn't a glass cliff, to ensure I wasn't set up to fail, it was amazing how many people came up and offered to mentor me. And it wasn't like, hey, Denise, I heard you're CTO now. I'm going to be your mentor. You know, these are people who genuinely wanted to see me thrive and to be successful. And many of them became my friends, and many of them were people who had traveled the road before. And I think part of that is because leaders tend to want to help others anyway. They're always thinking about things greater than themselves, people that surround them. And so if you are looking for a mentor or a sponsor, don't be afraid to ask, because I bet you there's leaders out there that would put their hand up.
So in your experiences then, and I'll just put this to anybody on the panel, how do you get a sponsor? I mean, we've heard about coaches, we've heard about mentors before, and oftentimes organizations have mentorship programs where you're connected within that official program, but a sponsor is a little different. So how do you get a sponsor, Wolfie?
Well, I'll tell you, I was the very lucky beneficiary of sponsorship from the CFO at Cisco. I met her, and she just agreed, out of the goodness of her heart, I think, frankly, to kind of be friendly with me. And be around me at parties or at events, and she would stand next to me. And it was only later, and I sent her a text today thanking her, that I realized she had just decided that she was going to help me raise my visibility in the organization. And she made sure I was invited to meetings that I might not have otherwise been invited to. I don't think you can ask somebody to be a sponsor, but you can be aware suddenly when people are looking out for you. You may not have noticed it, and I just encourage you to thank them and pay it forward.
So I'm going to be really direct here because I just really want to make sure people get sponsors if they want to sponsor. Would you ever ask someone, male or female, or otherwise, did you speak up for me in the meeting? What did you say about me in the meeting? Would you ever do that? Like, I'm just wondering if other people are.
I think I would not. I think that's a confrontational conversation, and people will lie to you. Oh, of course, Wolfie, I spoke up for you. Atta girl, way to go. It's easier to find out from other people, hey, did they speak up for me? Or people will come to you and say, hey, by the way, so-and-so spoke up for you, and you may not have realized they were a sponsor of yours. So just be open to that from the universe, and you'll find particularly very senior women will look out for you, even if you've never asked them to.
Okay. Kate, what about yourself?
I guess I think of this in terms of, making yourself visible, like go out of your way, make those relationships. Whatever the leaders in your group, your organization, you may think that, they don't have the time but they're actually hungry to know you more. And just because you're a leader doesn't mean you're not intimidated by the people that are on your team. So for all of you, you're all leaders in your own right, and make yourself known. I'm a believer that feedback is the breakfast of champions. It's painful sometimes, but I guess to that direct question, I have said to people, I would love this support from you. What is there in our current relationship or your current perception of me that might prevent you from, putting your name behind me? Because I feel like then you'll find out any of those things that you really wish you knew, or they may say, no, I think you're amazing, I absolutely endorse you, or, here's some areas where I question or that I'd love to see ticked off before I would sponsor you.
Literally 2 weeks ago, my sponsor at Dell sat me down after I'd given a presentation and said, Wolfie, you didn't do yourself any favors in that presentation.
What do we need to know, Wolfie?
And thank God I had my sunglasses on, because I'm like, hup, hup, hup. But I put my big girl pants on, and she told me, you were so interested in making sure the audience was getting to know one another that you left the stage and they didn't know who you are or what you do. So take the time to say that, which goes against so much of what we're taught and socialized from the time up. So I think sometimes a sponsor will give you the hard feedback, even if you haven't asked for it. I did go have a little wobble, put my concealer back on, and went back to work.
Fair enough, fair enough. What I'm thinking of as you're sharing as well, though, is some of the thought leadership from Kim Scott. Her book is Radical Candor, where you care personally and you challenge directly. And I think that sponsors often do that for us. And just really hold you accountable to deliver on what it is that needs to be done. So we'll see where this experiences go with mentorship and sponsorship. Kate, have you had experiences with sponsorship and or mentorship itself?
Well, growing up in a family business, I've had the unusual opportunity to have an exterior peer mentorship group, and it was actually first put together by Simon Fraser University, brought together a small group of women. We were unknown to each other. And the thing that I will say that has been the most, this group has endured for over 20 years. I mean, we've been together longer than most marriages. And so it's a pretty powerful group. And I think that what we benefit in this, in our model of mentorship, is around storytelling. So they always say that, you can't learn from other people's experiences, you only learn from your own. But if you cultivate this, instead of giving advice, when your girlfriend, your peer at work, someone comes to you with a problem, rather than saying, I think you should do this, I think you shouldn't do this, try to reach deep and think about, your situation reminds me of this experience I had. And you'd be amazed how much more relaxed that makes the person feel, puts you on level playing ground. So I think it's part of the art of mentorship is sharing stories. Practice yours and practice drawing them from people around you, from your bosses, your peers, because you will grow so much from that.
I find that really interesting because from a gender perspective, men is, somebody tells you they caught a fish this big, and every other man is going to say, well, I caught one this big, and we're that whole competitive, my fish is bigger than your fish. But what I love about what you're sharing is that through stories, we can take on our own learnings from those. It's not telling me what I should do or what I shouldn't do, and by the way, stop shooting on yourself, but really listen to the story and see what can we learn. To that, Wolfie, I understand you recently had a conversation speaking about family businesses with your daughter who's in tech. What was that about?
Well, I'll tell you, my daughter's a gorgeous, tall, skinny girl who could have been a fashion model and I think wanted to be. And when she was a freshman in college, she said, I want to take an unpaid internship for a fashion designer. I rolled my eyes, and she suddenly came back to me a couple months later and said, this not getting paid thing is really not great. I said, then you ought to reconsider a career in fashion where you're going to envy a lot of beautiful things, but you'll never have the money to buy them. So I handed her a pair of shoes and said, put these on, and if you go into tech sales, you'll be able to afford the fashion, not just envy the fashion. She took that to heart because she does like clothes, and when she graduated, she went to work for a software company selling salary benchmarking data, which is a great field. She learned how to cold call, which is a painful thing to learn. But again, I asked her, is this a company that's growing, and is it in a field where you're going to make more money and have more opportunity later on? Why don't you go talk to this IoT company with a beautiful office right down the street from you? So now, lo and behold, she's in IoT sales, and she calls me and says, Mom, I don't understand any of this. I said, don't worry, nobody understands it. Just keep, plugging along.
Some good advice. And so, whether it's a family, mentor, mentee relationship, Denise, I'm going to come to you with this last question from the stage, and then I want to come out to the audience because I think we have about 15 minutes left on the clock. And in your experience, what is a common subject mentees want to discuss?
Yeah, okay. So I talk very openly about my family, and I think this is somewhat why it drives this topic of conversation. But the question I do get asked a lot is around balance. It's about balancing your family, balancing your career. How do you do it? And then I become even more troubled when I hear women say, well, maybe I have to give up femininity or abandon biology in order to carry through with my career aspirations. And this is a really tough topic because there's actually no silver bullets. Studies still show that women are taking on more household duties than men. Women are still expected to be the primary caregiver, not just for the young people, not just for the children, but when your parents might be sick or the elderly,
Or your husband.
Or your husband, yeah, there's quite a few children in the house possibly, and it gets worse if you... Yeah, and it can get, and it's harder for those that are single parents. And so I think something that we might want to consider is that rather than having a conversation about equality, like while we're waiting for culturally and socially for the world to catch up and create true equality for women, maybe the conversation needs to be about equity. We know the playing field is not level, so how do we create processes, policies to help level the playing field so that those obstacles can be mitigated in some capacity? You guys might have a couple thoughts here too, but again, I don't think there's silver bullets, but some of the things I do think about is it starts when people announce that they're pregnant and people start to lean out. Like all of a sudden you have a disability and they expect you to take leave soon. And when you're on leave, particularly in Canada, lots of companies won't let you have performance evaluations, merit increases, promotions while you're on your mat leave. And so we have to fix that. I would say we have to fix that one. The other thing I would say is in Canada, we've got this great opportunity where men can take paternity leave. And raising awareness is really key. And when men take pat leave, I think that it helps us not only raise awareness, it increases the partnership in the household for that family, but it also does something about their voice and their ally, and it stops becoming a woman conversation and us conversation. It's a we conversation. How are men and women going to fix this so that parenting is,
there's nothing more frustrating to hear than the husband is babysitting.
Yes.
Seriously, you're parenting, you're not babysitting. So step up and get to it. Any other thoughts around questions that you're hearing from mentees before I come out to the audience and ask some questions? Anything else, Kate, you want to add to the conversation? Wolfie?
Go ahead, Kate.
Well, for those of you setting up households, just remember that we teach people how to treat us. So a lot of these roles that we've fallen into, we definitely, from the get-go, can set up different rules of engagement around that. So we teach people how to treat us.
So, and with that, I love some of the stories some of the other, powerful women have shared from our stage, in that the job needs to be done. What that looks like and how that's done might be different. And it was actually a parenting story about a husband that was staying home to raise a child for a period of time. And I believe it might have been Brene. And she shared that if she wanted it done her way, she had to do it herself. But if she came home and the babies still were a mess and the house wasn't cleaned up and picked up, it was not time for her to start picking up. It was time for her to let go and go and do what she needed to do. And he'll clean that house the way he's going to clean it, and he'll feed the children the way they're going to feed them when it's time. So I really respect that. We do teach people how to treat us. Are you ready to find out what the audience would like to know about you? Okay. I'm coming out. Just raise your hand really high, and I see someone over there.
Look at him
Go,
go,
Bill. He's
go,
good.
go.
We're making it.
Good eyesight, too.
Thank you. Hi, I work for ATB. My name is Neetu. Denise, represent.
Go Neetu.
I just wanted to ask you all a question about what's the most unconventional decision you made or a boundary that you set, either in your professional trajectory or in your personal life, that allowed you to be where you are today, knowing that org design, cultural and social systems don't naturally allow for women to rise to their potential.
Okay, I'll kick us off. I don't know if it was unconventional, but for me, going back over 20 years ago with a very small, struggling business where I wore a million hats and I felt responsible for so many things. I had a morning where I dropped my daughter. I would work, then I would get my daughter ready for school and drive her, and I was dropping her off, and she was walking across the front of the car, and I think I had like a moment of grace where I just saw her whole life, and I suddenly saw her like an adult, and I saw how fast this was going to go, and I made a decision in that moment that regardless of all of the crises and the things that I thought that I couldn't turn away from, if she invited me to something at her school, my absolute answer would be yes. And I've been at many sing-songs and track events and things that sometimes I was the only mom and there might have felt like really pressing things, but that commitment that I made forged like a crazy relationship between the two of us, and she now, despite any expectations I might have had, like works with me. And I think we just developed this relationship where she knew where she could count on me.
And she's in the business now.
She is in the business now. Yeah, we would not be where we are if she hadn't joined the business over 10 years ago.
What did they say about the apple and the tree?
Panel right in front of you here.
Chris, Kate, and Denise, thank you so much for sharing your insight. Denise, I have a question specifically for you. You talked about creating policies to create equality at work. So I'm wondering if you have one specific policy that you would recommend.
I think, when I talk about policy, I think at the government level, there's a lot that I mentioned there that I think we could be doing with respect to how we treat women on mat leave and pat leave. With respect to the workplace, this one isn't exactly novel, but I use it all the time. We're really great about flex work arrangements, and similar to what Kate's been sharing, a part of it is setting some of those boundaries for yourself. And so I'm very clear about the fact that I'm online from 6 till 7, and from 7 till 8:30, I'm taking my children to school, and if it's an emergency, you can call me. I also choose to spend dinner with my family every night. And so flex work arrangements allow that to happen. And I think many corporations have gone that way, but that's just one of the examples that I think companies should be moving towards if they're not.
I'm just a little bit closer to you now.
Hi, ladies. I have a question. I'm a newer leader in our company, and all of my direct reports are women, which I'm very grateful for. But as a new leader, is there any advice y'all could give me to be able to show them the support that they need so that they are willing to lead or follow me as a leader versus being forced to because I'm their boss?
Okay.
I think you have to encourage people to lead from their heart and their gut and set them up for success, but you're not their mother. You're not their psychiatrist. You're not their prison guard. You need to give them expectations, and I think the best thing you can do is coach them against the activities that will lead to success as opposed to the outcome. There's a great PBS documentary filmed by Channel 2 in Boston. They had the hypothesis that anybody in any physical condition, pretty much, is capable of running a marathon if they follow the right calisthenics and the training program at the right pace. So they coached this cohort just on completing the activities, not on getting to the marathon. And sure enough, I think only one person out of 20 dropped out. So just be firm and clear and set up regular coaching inspection of the activity versus the result or how they feel about it.
I would say as a new leader, my words to you would be don't take the monkey. Anyone ever heard of this before? I'm sure you may have. But I think it's so easy to want to make everything perfect and right. And as you said, you're not their mother. And I think the way you can rise up leaders is by sitting down and helping them think through their own solutions, their own next steps. But do not leave a meeting where you've got more on your to-do list than you had going in.
Panel on your far right. Far right. Here we go.
Yeah, I have worked as a certified butler, and one of the things I'm marketing myself for is to be a corporate concierge. That position in a corporation would be very useful when life happens for individuals, especially in the executive, and they need help running their lives so they can concentrate on being. So what do you think of that idea?
Yes.
I'd just like to get your email address.
Ditto.
And very, very specifically, when I took the job I have now, I went on to care.com, I signed up, and I posted an ad that said, my dream is that when I come home at the end of the day, the dog has gone out twice, the salad has been prepped, my bed is made, and the coffee maker and dishwasher are empty. And I ended up retaining a woman for whom that was her perfect job. She comes 3 days a week for 2 hours and does that, and it was the best investment I ever made.
We're going to get some applause for that or not? Hello. Neil Pasricha shares you can buy happiness. You pay for that service, and so what do you do with your time when you've paid somebody to do your house cleaning and everything else? So here's your next question.
Thank you to the three of you guys for all of your insights. My name's Kim. I'm from a technology startup in Edmonton, and one thing that's been on our mind a lot is around inclusivity in STEM for women and for visible minorities, and we've had a lot of organic growth happening with people wanting to join organizations or groups. So just wondering what the three of your companies are doing to promote women in leadership and also diversity amongst people in your companies.
Well, I'll take a stab at that. There's a lot of hype around STEM, right, which is science, technology, engineering, medicine. I think we need more liberal arts majors, more non-techies than techies in a lot of these technical jobs, because we need creative people to think of sensible, common sense answers to problems, and engineers aren't always the best ones to find a common sense answer to a problem.
Yeah, at Sage, our challenge has been actually to attract men into our workforce.
Yeah.
Because I think, I mean, we're still probably 85, 90% a female organization. So we're, you know, every time we have a meeting or a gathering, I'm like, awesome, there's 3 guys here. So I think, you know, it's really about opening the doors to always just looking at who is the best person for the job, but also starting to, you know, build upon who people know. And so, you know, there's a stereotype, I suppose, with our type of business that it should be all women, but we want to have more men with us.
You double your addressable market, right?
You bet.
Do we have time? Sure. Yeah, okay. I was going to add, at ATB, we've got a great program that started about a year and a half ago called Elevate, and we try to raise awareness on exactly the topics that you were mentioning there. One of our big rocks is for sure, how do we actually increase women in leadership, especially for women of color? The intersectionalities are very much so marginalized, and I think there's some strategies in place today for women, but the intersectionalities are not getting the same coverage and visibility. I read this great article in Forbes just maybe 3 or 4 days ago, and it was called "Why Leaning In Doesn't Work for Women of Color." And it was really an interesting article. It was an interview of an author who wrote a book about this. The book's called The Memo. I haven't had the opportunity to read it, but she alludes to the fact that perhaps what we need to do is be very intentional about sponsoring people who don't look like us, who don't think like us, creating programs where we're really looking at some of our biases and identifying those people and helping to mentor or sponsor them.
It is so interesting how sadly, when men have created the corporate world, we hire birds of a feather that flock together. And for me, without question, it's, you know, if you and I have the same thought, one of us isn't necessary. What are you doing to add value to the thought? Amanda Lang shares with us that whenever you go to a business meeting, sit next to the person that irritates you the most. And it's because they think differently than you do. And so how do we embrace that? How do we really embrace that? So, Wolfie, I'm going to come to you first here. Our panel time is drawing close, but we've had 3 amazing speakers. We have 3 amazing panelists. As you leave this hall today, what are you excited about? What's coming?
I'm psyched about what all these women are going to do with technology that we're making. I mean, the innovation that's coming our way is just going to be incredible. The fact that I can see who's at my front door, that I can order up, you know, a service like care.com, bring those great ideas forward. I'm super excited about them. I also just want to give the room one practical tip. You talked about sitting next to somebody at a meeting that you dislike. I teach this to my girls and my daughter's friends. When you go to a meeting, don't sit in the back like this. Go sit right in the middle, spread yourself out. Put your purse here, put your laptop here, take up space. Then look at all the other women who are sitting very small. Men don't do that. So take up space at the table. You deserve to be there, and practice that so you don't scare yourself the first time.
Yes. So, this in Toronto, where I'm currently residing as my primary residence, on the subway, we call that man-spreading, where we take up a lot of space. But I know so much about that, not from men, but from Amy Cuddy, who's been on our stage as well, and her book is Presence, right? Exactly, those power poses of victory. Denise, what are you excited about? What's coming for you aside from your daughter?
Okay, I have been fangirling for weeks about hearing Malala speak. It's obviously, she has done tremendous things and has, you know, obviously that's clear, but for me, it's actually the symbolism of what Malala represents. And it's the power of the youth. And when I look at these young people and the amount of knowledge that they have, the amount of power that they're unlocking, and it's just the tip of the iceberg, it gets me incredibly excited. They are going to be on the forefront of progress and change for us. And so I'm really excited about that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And Kate, I'm going to come to you now. I alluded as we got back from lunch that there was a gift on people's seats. And so if we're sitting here a year from now, celebrating what a great year it's been for you in your current role, what are we celebrating? What progress have we made for you and your organization?
Well, I think it's that time of our time together where you get that little brown bottle, that little brown box that was sitting. Can everybody get a hold of theirs and maybe raise it up to me in their left hand? So what would be really exciting to me and what I am so enthused about is wellness taking its proper role, not only in our personal lives, but in our corporate worlds, where we're seen as individuals and where we're seen that taking care of ourselves is actually so instructive to our happiness and to our productivity. So what I would love to know is that a year from now, everyone in this room is reaching for something natural at home with their children in the workplace to help their wellness, to help them feel more connected to nature. And so I would love you to join me and just run your hand around and pop off the top, because we're going to all have a little demonstration, a little moment here to feel relaxed and to maybe address something that I call tech neck. Does anyone recognize what that is, tech neck? You know, we're always leaning a little bit forward. I worry sometimes that we're going to like reverse the chain and end up, you know, back from where many people think we came from. So if you got your bottle of Peppermint Halo open, this was our first product that is registered in Canada as a headache and migraine reliever, but it's also incredible to help with tech neck. So I'm going to get some help here from my new friend, Wolfie.
I was trying to get some of that on my hands.
So has everyone got it in their hand? Who here in the audience has used Peppermint Halo before? Woo, okay.
Wow,
Who
awesome.
hasn't used Peppermint Halo before? Okay, you're in for something awesome. So now I want you to take it. I keep saying I'm going to do this, but take it in your right hand. You have the cap off. Everybody get the cap off. Rollerball up. Flip back your beautiful, nice hair, like I'm going to do on my neighbor here. And get some of this rolled generously down your neck.
Keep going.
Okay, okay. So let's get some on my neighbor here. So you've got lavender, which is going to relax your nervous system. You've got peppermint, which is bringing blood flow after a lunch that we had. You've got rosemary, which is creating circulation. So how are we feeling? You're going to start to feel that go to work in the next 3-4 minutes. And as you are having the freshness come out and the peppermint is wafting through the room, I just want you all to take a moment to close your eyes. Here in this room with all these powerful women, please join me and close your eyes. Get your feet flat on the floor. Unencumber yourself. Take a big breath in. Think about all of the pearls of wisdom that you've heard in this room, whether it's been from your neighbor that you're sitting next to, that you shared something, whether it was through some of the voices that you've heard from up here on the stage. But I want you to think about the one thing that you are going to commit and take and put into action that's going to make a difference in your leadership and make a difference in your life. And then you're going to take your Peppermint Halo with you, and anytime you want to be reminded of this moment, of this decision, this commitment that you've made to yourself, you can bring that out to help you anchor it and to relieve yourself from tech neck.
There we go.
All
and
right.
we are now grounded. Beautiful. That is your executive panel at the Art of Leadership for Women in Calgary. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much.